What's good, everybody? So you want to know the differences between Japan and Australia. Let's get into it. Yo, what is good? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be using my phone as the voice recorder because I think I'm going to be standing too far away from the camera. So obviously today is my other video where I do random videos of whatever I'm feeling on the day. Today's going to be like a top 5 differences between Japan and Australia. So the first topic I want to touch on with my beautiful background of Shibuya is the overwork problem and Australia's work-life balance. So for the contrast, Japan has the issue of working too much. The expectations of your job is you are going to do overtime. It is very hard to find a job that actually allows you to do no overtime. It's actually an expectation here. And this overtime is usually in Japan not paid, especially for most companies. Even gaishike companies, which is foreign companies, still adhere to this strict regime. And it basically means that you're going to work maybe an extra, I'd probably work about an extra 5 hours a week. And that's on the low end, actually. Usually people work for like a lot longer hours than that overtime. So there's the salaryman lifestyle, which is you go to work early, you leave to home really late. And basically you don't actually have time to spend your money except on food. And that's actually like the lifestyle here. That's why it's so bad, the overwork situation in Japan. Even for myself, coming from Australia, I feel kind of overworked, even though I'm not doing as much as what a traditional salaryman would do, because I am at a gaishike. But this company actually is very lenient, and they don't expect you to do overtime, but to be successful in this job, you have to do overtime, basically. So I guess it's the expectation versus the reality of the situation you're in. In addition to that, usually, like most jobs in Japan, are not Monday to Friday. There are going to be some jobs are Tuesday to Saturday. Some require you to always work not a public holiday, but some require you to work public holidays. Some require you to work on the weekends without extra pay. So this is a huge problem in Japan. The hours are very tough. I mean, you're looking at maybe like 14 hours days possibly if you're in a really bad situation. So it's really tough to fight the overwork in Japan versus Australia, which has the more work-life balance lifestyle. Australia's really moved into like flexible working. A lot of places now have work from home. A lot of places now you can, go home early. You can like take days off whenever you want. It's not very strict for everyone to conform to like this overwork. And overtime in Australia is always paid. So it's like, even if you do work extra, it's not like that bad because the overtime rate is actually very high in Australia too, which is another thing that's very different. The salary range, obviously in Australia, you make more for less time, and Japan, you make less for more time. So you're really trading like your time in Japan. Whereas in Australia, you're not really trading time, but if you do, you are actually reaping more rewards than what you would in Japan. So I guess like the main comparison you want to draw between Australia and Japan is that Australia, average work week for most Australians will be 38 hours to 40 hours, and the average work week for someone in Japan could be anywhere between 38 to maybe like some people who I've heard do 50, 60 hours a week, maybe even more. The people who get really overworked can do up to 70. There's extreme cases of black companies where you actually just sleep at the office because you work from when you wake up to when you sleep. Obviously hours is a massive difference. And in addition to that, job expectation is very different. Australia, you're expected to do what you're paid to do. I feel like it's very hard to find a job in Australia where you're doing more than what you're paid for, and if you are, you're complaining about it and then like you stop. But in Japan, it's just the expectation to do more than what you're paid for. In addition, like the overtime is one of the examples I can draw. So yeah, that's what I think for these two parts of it. And then in addition to vacation days, I guess vacation days is like you get like I feel like in Australia it's very different. You don't get like a set week of like time off, right? You get like a couple days here and there. But Japan, it's more like you get barely any days off during the year, and then you just get like 1 week or like 1 week and a couple days off at a time. So in that regard, they're very different, and also like public holidays often aren't paid here, and it's just rough here, man. So that's pretty much all I got to talk about for this topic. So I'll catch you guys in the next location for our next topic. All right, we're in our next location. Just in some random ass alley, to be honest with you. Next topic I want to touch on is the tourist experience. So which country is more travel friendly? Now this is a tough one because both countries, I feel like, because I've traveled here before, right, before I lived here. So traveling here was very comfortable for me because I didn't obviously have to go through like the daily regime of everything. So I'm going to speak mainly on the tourist experience that I've had rather than the live-in experience I've had here. And then in addition, obviously, I've never been a tourist in Australia. I live there. But I guess I'm going to talk more on like how I treated like people being a tourist and how I've seen people that are tourists be treated in Australia. So I guess the first part, obviously, for Japan is the unique culture, temples, anime, tourism, the cars. Everything really in Japan is very catered to, I guess, the people that really like anime, really like cars, people that like, I guess, more of a hustle and bustle kind of environment. But it was also catered to the people that like real serenity. I think that Japan does a really good job of being very peaceful, very serene with like its locations, right? Because you could go down the road of like most hotels and you'll get to a shrine. Now, in Australia, like finding something like that is very hard to come by. We have gardens, but we don't really have anything like, I guess, uniquely cultural about Australia, like in a close proximity anyway. So I think that's a real key difference between the two, right? So traveling in Japan, you get both city and nature. You get temples, you get culturally significant places, culturally rich places. In Japan as a foreigner, especially when you are traveling here, because you can visit everything in a short period of time, I guess, compared to when you live here. In addition, right, so as for Australia, it's more like, beach, wildlife. That's pretty much the main things, going to the bar, pubs, things like that, road trips. It's more about like the outback and like going on like really long car rides and things like that, I feel like, in Australia. I think as a tourist in Australia, it's probably very hard to get around if you do not have a car, obviously. So that aspect is really bad about Australia. If you don't have a car in Australia, especially when you're being a tourist, it's going to be tough to get anywhere exciting. And I think that's a really big difference as well between the two. Like, I can get anywhere in Japan as a tourist, but in Australia it would be it'd be a hassle to get anywhere, really. And then you can talk about, like, I guess the difference in culture. I think Australia is very welcoming, very friendly, but it's also, I guess, not very accepting in a certain way. And what I mean by that is, like, if someone's unable to speak English, usually most people don't go that extra step to try and help you. If they just say they don't know what you're saying, and they'll be like, I can't really help you, like, I'm going to go now, or something like that. But I feel like in Japan, not being able to speak English not being able to speak Japanese is like not that bad of a thing. They actually go that extra mile to help you out as a tourist because they know that you're struggling. You can't read or you can't like speak, so they're like, damn, we're going to help this guy. So you whip out a Google Translate. They try their hardest to help you here as a tourist, especially. So I think Japan really has a one-up on Australia in that regard as a tourist as well. Just the extra mile that they go to try and help you because of how nice they are. Whether that's superficial nice is a completely different topic, but they do help you. So regardless if it's superficial or not, that's just a key factor. So I guess the question boils down to, like, which is the better place to visit as a tourist? And I guess my answer is Japan, because it's just more convenient to get places you want to go to, and it's also just better if you need help, I feel like. So those are my thoughts on the topic. Let me know if you guys have any other thoughts on it, but I think I pretty much touched all the things I want to touch on this topic. But let me know if you guys have any more thoughts about it. But this is how I feel. But again, I haven't traveled to Australia as a tourist. I'll never be able to do that because I'm not a tourist. I mean, unless I go to other states, but even then it's still like the same. So yeah, let me know if you've been a tourist in Australia, what your thoughts are. So yeah, let's hit the next location, Brev. All right, next location, some vending machines, Brev. All right, so festivals and holidays versus Australia. Australia has laid back holidays. We don't really plan anything out, it's just how's it going. But I think Japan's more structured in their holidays. They also just plan everything. So if you want to do a comparison, it's like Australia, we just have barbecues on Australia Day. We just go to the beach on public holidays. We go sporting events like Melbourne Open? No, Australian Open. I don't know tennis that well. Yeah, Australian Open we have. We just go sporting events on holidays or the beach. We don't really plan anything out, to be fair. I feel like it's more laid back. There's no real structure to anything, especially on like our public holidays. We just do whatever we're feeling like, really. And then there's a complete opposite in Japan where you have like a full like schedule for your whole break, right? So basically there's always these meticulously planned festivals, or there's these like well thought out rituals or firework displays, everything like that. So like especially for like the summer vacation, winter vacation and all of those things, there's like always like a huge festival that happens during these times, whereas Australia doesn't really have anything like that. So you could be like planning your whole like whole like vacation around this festival, and like you plan out every step or like everything you're going to do in Japan. Basically that's what most people do anyway here. I guess because it's like the one time in their working life that they get to enjoy themselves or like go and see something exciting, right? Whereas in Australia it's more just like we'll just head to the beach, we'll have a barbecue with our mates, all of that just on our holidays. But they really structure out their holidays here. So it's like a real comparison between being spontaneous versus being culturally rich in tradition, celebrations and stuff like that. So it's a really key difference, I think, between the two countries in the aspect of holidays and festivals. There's way more that happens here in Japan. It's way more exciting, I feel like, especially for like these traditions. So yeah, it's just another day in Australia for us, and then in Japan it's like very significant, and it's also very culturally motivated as well, and traditionally motivated too. So I feel like the holidays in Australia really haven't kept their significance, haven't really kept their culturally rich significance anyway, apart from like the one holiday like Anzac Day. I feel like that's the only one that we've culturally like kept alive, but at the same time I don't think it's as heavy as celebrated as it once was. Whereas Japan, I feel like they've continued to celebrate it at the same intensity each year on year. So I think that's a very large difference between the two as well, and I guess it gives you insight onto the cultural significance and the tradition-rich society Japan lives in. So it's very different in that regard, especially living here for the year I have. I've definitely seen this firsthand, and I've experienced it firsthand as well. So yeah, like in my 23 years of living in Australia, it was, I don't know, I mean, I was just celebrating because it was a holiday, not really because it was culturally impactful. But I feel like Japan has really taught me to respect reason for the holiday now, rather than just, oh, it's a holiday, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's a really major difference as well. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in my next spot. All right, we're in our next spot. We're in like one of the busiest spots, so I don't want to stand here too long because I'm going to feel awkward if I stand here for a long time. But This is usually the corner actually that most like influencers will film. Maybe a little further like down near past that family mart, but anyway, let's move into the topic. So the topic actually is wildlife. So I don't know, no one really talks about this, but the wildlife is very different, man. And it's like one of the biggest key comparisons you can make between the two countries, because obviously Japan, I feel like, does not have this, like it doesn't have obviously as deadly animals as Australia, but also it's kind of like I barely see spiders here. I've seen maybe one and it was so small. And also at the same time, it doesn't really have any reptiles like in the suburban areas, or like in like the city. Obviously it doesn't have anything either. So I think that's an actual huge difference as well, obviously. So Australia's wildlife is obviously like bad. I mean, not bad in a bad way, but like it's scary. You know, you could die at any point just walking through the bush. We have snakes, we have crocodiles, we got spiders that can kill ya. We got everything, man. So, you know, that's a major difference here. Like I don't think there is a spider here that can like kill you, at least not that I know of, or not that I've seen as well. Whereas like if I go outside into my shed in Australia, I'll see a redback, and that if that thing bites you, you can go straight to hospital, and then you're fucked. But yeah, in addition to that, like, you know, there's like cute animals here, you know, like deers, foxes. They got like otters and stuff in cafes, and everything like that. So like the wildlife here is really cute, whereas I feel like Australia's wildlife is like not so cute. Everyone thinks a koala is cute, but that thing makes some terrifying noises, and it also stinks. They are cute though, I can't lie, but it's like they're not as cute as what they're perceived to be. In addition to that, apart from wildlife in the actual wild, where we have snakes, lizards, all of it, and Japan barely has any of it, they do have that. I think they have the boomslang snake here, but that's the only one that I know of that's like deadly here, and it's only in the forest in Japan, like in the mountains. So yeah, it's not really comparable, you know what I mean? Whereas a snake could be in your backyard and kill you in Australia. So yeah, but also the touch on like wildlife, other than wildlife, domesticated pets is so different here. I do not see that many dogs. I feel like I see a lot of dogs, but I don't see as many as obviously in Australia. And especially in Australia, we have huge dogs. We have like the big dogs. The only dogs I really see here is like the small dogs, dogs that can go into like a pram or their purse, something like that. So we have like those kinds of things in Japan. Cats also you don't see too often in the streets. Most people keep their cats inside here. I've probably seen maybe 20 cats outside before, and half of those were at shrines. They always have like a pet cat at shrines usually, so that's very different aspect as well. You see cats all the time in Australia. So yeah, and then in addition to that, like I think there's probably more exotic pets here actually. I see a lot of exotic pets here, you know, like otters and like chinchillas and like all those kinds of things they keep here. Whereas in Australia, I feel like not many people will own an exotic pet because it's far too expensive, and also because we have the space for dogs, everyone prefers to choose a dog, you know what I mean? So like there's no space here, so if they buy like tiny animals they can fit into their apartments, or that will be allowed by the landlord in the apartments as well. So yeah, that's also another key difference for the wildlife here, I feel. So yeah, and let's chuck a dip to the next spot, man. All right. And we're in our final location, gang. So hopefully this phone's recording. I just had a look, but it should be recorded. We'll see. Hopefully the audio is not getting picked up on the wind, because I came to a different spot, so it was less windy. Anyway, my last point to talk about in comparison is technology and modern living. So I guess the first topic we probably should touch on is like vending machines. That's probably one of the largest differences, I think. Vending machines is like very high tech in Japan. You got vending machines that you can get food out of. You got like not just snacks, like proper food, you know what I mean? Like ramen, or like you can get like fucking hot sauce out of it. Or there's honestly a vending machine for everything in Japan, which is crazy. And not only that, like ticketing systems also work on vending machines in Japan. So if you're basically going to like a ramen shop, a lot of them will have actually a vending machine outside with all their foods, right? You click the button, you put the money in, and bang, you get a ticket. You don't have to order anything like that. I feel like obviously a touchscreen screen outside would be much easier than a ticket system, but it's still, I guess, more advanced than Australia, because Australia only has, I guess, that in that in like McDonald's or like only really fast food places, but this place has it. Japan has it in like random places, you know what I mean? So, yeah. But they also have really high level tech in terms of vending machines versus Australia's like basic vending machines. We just have like Coke and Monster in them, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they're pretty bad, but yeah, you can get like hot meals here. You can get drinks, umbrellas. There's so many things you can get from a vending machine here that obviously Australia does not have the capability of doing, right? And when you think about technology, obviously you're not like, wow, vending machine, so cool, so high tech. But I mean, it is actually a very big difference. It's also a very big comparison, because like I can walk around any of these corners and there's going to be a vending machine with something I can eat or I can drink. It doesn't really matter. So that's I think a really big comparison you can make between the two countries. In tech wise is the technology that they put into vending machines and like into those kinds of systems, whereas Australia is really only just adopting that kind of system now with the more advanced tech, but we're still, I feel like, behind, even though we have the touch screens, you know what I mean? As for internet speed here is way faster than Australia. My internet actually was really fucking bad, but that's because I wasn't using obviously actual cable into my home. I just had a Wi-Fi router that was pinging off another tower basically, and I didn't have an actual connection to a landline, so that's why it was so bad. But the actual like internet wise, like when you have proper internet here, it is proper fast. It's way faster than any 5G we have in Australia. It's way faster than any fiber optics in Australia. Like my hotspot, the hotspot I use to upload now, is actually faster than any internet I've had in Australia. This internet I can download at like 100 megabytes a second on a hotspot, whereas like in Australia, 100 megabytes a second is basically impossible. Seriously, like Australia max is probably like 50. Like it's genuinely like terrible. And in addition, that's just with a phone, right? So I mean, imagine using an actual proper router here would be even better. I upload a 4K video now every day. Well, not every day, but usually every day in about like 2 hours. And this is a 4K 30-minute video. Whereas in Australia, that would take me, I don't even know, man. I never uploaded videos in Australia, so I can't comment, but I just know it's going to be way more than like 2 hours. So there's that. The cost of internet, I guess, is actually higher here, I feel like, than Australia, which is fair enough because it's better. But at the same time, when you're earning less, it's like, this is pretty expensive, you know what I mean? But anyway, aside from those couple topics for tech, anyway, we got cash and cashless payments. Japan loves cash. That's just a fact. I think Japan's very behind in like cashless payment and like those kinds of things. Like the payment systems here are usually like for certain places are only cash, right? And I think cash it shouldn't be phased out, but it shouldn't be the only way you can pay for something now. I think that's like a prehistoric kind of method now. To only have a place that you can only pay in cash is very like, what? Wow. You know what I mean? So that's a very big key comparison you can draw to Australia, right? Australia is always, everywhere you go is going to be card, cashless. The only places that don't let you pay with card are like the dodgy places that don't want to pay tax, right? Here it's not even a tax thing. It's just they don't have the machine. So it's like, fuck me. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Australia has tap and go, and Japan just doesn't really have that. I mean, they do, but it's not to the same extent. I think that what Japan does really well in terms of tech for payments is that they have PayPay. PayPay is actually really good. You scan a QR code and like send money that way. The process obviously takes longer, but the key benefit of it is you get points, right? So those points can be used at any place, and I think that's like very good. That's like the one payment system I think is better in Japan than it is in what we have in Australia. But yeah, I still think Japan's behind on payment in technology wise anyway. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. And then I guess for like smart homes and things like that, Japan has a really futuristic way of living. They obviously try to maximize the small amount of space they have in their homes. So they have a lot of machines that are compact, and they have a lot of machines that do a lot of things at once rather than just be for one thing, you know what I mean? So I think that Japan's like tech for home wise is far better than Australia's. Australia's is still, I feel like, miles behind. You know, we don't really have smart homes, but I feel like Japan has a lot more smart homes. Not necessarily a lot, but they definitely have more. I've seen more, but I think in terms of maybe like the gadgets you can buy here is very different to what you can get in Australia because they want to maximize their space usage. So yeah, that's pretty much that for like I guess living. But apart from like gadgets and stuff, obviously they have the high-tech toilets too in like most homes, so that's way better as well. Like Australia doesn't have any high-tech toilets. All the toilets are just toilets, but here they have like crazy ones that like sing to you and make sounds and like warm your butt and all of that wild stuff. So yeah, I think in terms of tech for home, at least, is far more advanced in not Australia, in Japan. Australia is a bit lacking in that aspect. So yeah, other than those kinds of topics for tech related things, I think that tech honestly is overall better in Australia, purely because the cost actually is cheaper in Australia for most things tech related actually. So like camera and like phones and all of that is actually cheaper to buy in Australia than it is here for some weird reason. I actually don't know why, but yeah, the tech here is very expensive. Like cameras are like extra $300 here. Microphones are extra 20, you know, like headsets are extra 20. Like it's pretty fucking crazy to think that they have I have a lower salary, but I'm paying more for the tech that I need, which is very different to Australia in that respect, because I think that overall Japan has better tech in terms of like convenience of vending machines and home appliances, but I think they're very far behind Australia and the rest of the world now in terms of modernizing. I think that's the biggest problem that Japan has at the moment. Modernizing is actually not great here. You know, if you go back like 20, 30 years, Japan was definitely the most advanced, you know, their tech was top of the top. But now it's switched to where Japan is falling behind on tech because they're not modernizing into what needs to be modernized in the technology aspects. Whereas Australia and I feel like US and everyone else and China and all of that is really adopting the new tech and new ways of like living, basically. So yeah. Anyway, that's my last topic I wanted to talk about. So you guys know the drill. Peace and love, and I'll see you guys in the next video, man.